Thanks for joining us today on a simple tutorial on how to enter charges, billing, and take some payments within Practice Perfect. As with most items in our system, it begins with setup. Usually under your housekeeping drop-down list, you can access your financial fee code section, where we contain a list of your payment methods, and a list of your fee codes. This part needs to be set up in the system prior to entering any charges. Depending on which country you reside in, you may have to turn on specific settings. The settings in the US are usually for a HICFA, electronically or paper format, or an EDI 837, also known as a 5010 submission file. Within Canada, your settings are usually per province. In Ontario, you have HCI and WSIB settings. In BC, you'll have ICBC, MSP, and workers' comp settings, as well as other options. Please email us or contact our support department directly for specific setup instructions for your state or province. The next step would be to set up your payors. Payors in our system are anything other than the patient receiving an invoice. In my example, I'm going to double-click on Medicare as a payer, and the setup for billing components are on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. In the US, you will need to choose the kind of insurance company from the drop-down list, and then you will choose your primary and secondary invoice styles. This is how you want to submit your charges. Most likely in the US, if you're using a clearinghouse, you're either going to be submitting an EDI 837 5010 submission or a HICFA electronic bill. If you're printing paper HICFA forms, you will select the HICFA 1500 red form. Within Canada, your fields are the same, but your options are somewhat different. The kind of insurance company is usually one of 4 options, and the primary invoice style will be selected based on the province that you reside. Within the US, you may be responsible for providing the payer identifier number. This payer identifier number needs to be entered in a specific area dependent on the style of submission that you're sending. For example, if you're sending a HICFA electronic claim or a HICFA 1500 print claim, your identifier number can go here under the payer information. If you're submitting an EDI submission, under settings for your EDI invoice settings, your payer numbers will need to go under payors. This basic setup information simply tells the system how to submit the invoicing and what numbers are appropriate. The next step is just simply ensuring that those insurance companies are attached to your patients in their billing rules. Simply find the name of the patient, double-click, go to the Incidents tab, and then the Billing Rules tab. The insurance company or companies should be connected to the patient in this particular area. Whoever is on the top is considered the primary insurer. Whoever's on the bottom is considered the secondary insurer. Once you ensure your setup for payers and your setup for your patients are completed, then you can start adding some charges to your patient files. In this particular example, we have Carol booked on Wednesday, October the 10th. From the scheduler, to add a charge to Carol's account, we can click on the hand symbol at the top of your function bar. You simply confirm the date, choose the fee item that you wish to charge the patient for. In the US, you may have to provide a location code, and you may have to change the number of units. You may want to confirm the diagnostic codes that you're treating the patient for. If they don't already appear on this screen, you can simply add them by clicking the bar marked New Incident Diagnostic, Injury, or Body Part Code. In the US, you may have to provide modifiers. The modifiers, if not already defaulted, can be added simply by choosing the drop-down list. You will hit the Add button to add this particular charge to the patient's file. You should see it in this bottom highlighted section. And then you can add another code to the patient's file by going through the same steps again. You can backdate claims and edit any information on this screen. Once that's completed, hit the OK button to store that information. There are many ways to add charges to the patient's file. You don't necessarily have to be in the scheduler. Just look for the hand symbol on the top of your function bar. For an example, if I hit the Enter button on my keyboard to go into the patient's profile, the hand symbol is following me around. I can enter charges from virtually any screen in the system. Just simply look for the hand symbol. Should your clinic decide to have the therapist enter the treatment through their clinical notes, you may want to watch our video on clinical documentation. Basically, the clinician would be inside their daily note. They as well would hit the hand symbol from within their note. Their screen is slightly different from what you saw in the scheduler, but the concepts are still the same. Green plus sign to choose the particular fee code we want to add to the patient's file. In the US, we're still confirming units, possibly time that we spent with the patient. We're still confirming which diagnostic codes or adding new diagnostic codes to the patient's file. Green plus sign to do it all over again. Hit OK once you're done to store that information. So charges can be added virtually from anywhere in the system by simply looking for the hand symbol on your function bar. Back in the scheduler, the scheduled appointment should reflect that we have entered the charges for the day by the white hand symbol showing up visually on the scheduled appointment. Now we're ready to take some payments for this patient. At the top of the screen in the blue area, if the patient has any outstanding balance, that information will always be noted at the top of the screen. From the scheduler, should we want to record a payment from the patient, we can go to the payment symbol, which looks like a pile of money. We will confirm who, the date, how much, and then what method is being used for the payment. Most likely, if the patient is paying for particular services, they'll want to walk away with some type of invoice or receipt. You can create this by simply clicking the box stating Produce an Invoice and Receipt. Select the OK button when complete. You will have the opportunity to print or preview the invoice or receipt before you prepare it. Should there be nothing to prepare, you will receive a message stating as such. The preview should show you an actual copy of what you're about to give to the patient. Most standard invoice and receipts will show the services the patient has incurred, the payments they've paid, and any outstanding balances. In order to complete or keep this transaction, you must either print or post the invoice/receipt. Printing will send it to your printer as well as posting. Posting just simply makes it official on the system. It does not send it to your printer. Another way to make a payment is from the patient's Activities by Service screen. The Book of Hands icon will take you to their Activities by Service. In this screen, should you want to pay specific items, you can simply flag the items or line items that you wish to pay, then go to the payment symbol. You may receive this large payment screen, especially when paying more than one item at the same time. Don't be intimidated. This information is exactly the same as from the scheduler. We just have more options at this point. We're still confirming who, the date, the method of the payment, and then we're just simply confirming the amount that is being applied. Then we're going to take this amount and apply it toward each of the line items that I'm paying. If we're only paying a portion, for an example in this case, maybe we're only paying $10 and the patient is paying $5 on this line item and another $5 on this line item. We simply record that total under the red column marked Apply Total. We have a balance outstanding therefore on each line item, and we can decide whether that balance remains, whether we write off a portion, or whether we're transferring a portion of that to another payer. You can also produce the invoice and receipt from this screen simply by clicking the box marked as Produce Invoice/Receipt. OK to save that information. Same options as from the scheduler. We can preview that invoice or receipt before we actually produce it to the patient. We can also make payments from the insurance companies from this particular screen. The concept is exactly the same. Simply flag the line items that we're going to be paying from the insurance company, go to the payment icon, and this time record exactly the same information, but remember that you're paying from an insurance company. If the insurance company is only partially paying, your concepts are exactly the same. Enter the amounts per line item, and then decide whether you're going to write off, keep the balance, or transfer portions of it back to the patient. Keep in mind, if you do transfer balances back to the patient's name, once you hit the OK button, you will need to go back in and invoice the patient for those amounts that you just transferred to them. A third way to make a payment in the system is called batch paying. That's when you receive one large check from an insurance company, perhaps for multiple patients. In that case, instead of paying patient by patient, as we've done so far, we can go to the payer section of the system. Select the payer, go to the Book of Invoices, also called the Activities by Invoice screen. This will give you a list of all invoices submitted that are unpaid. Simply select the names of the patients that are being paid on your invoice. If you need to confirm which dates of service are part of the invoices you see on the screen, hit the plus box to the left-hand side and it will list the dates of service. Now that you have flagged the multiple patients, you can go to the same payment icon that we were at before. And now the screen is exactly the same. The only difference is that you're paying multiple patients at the same time. All the entries and concepts are exactly the same. As with batch paying, we can batch bill in the system as well. For an example, should we wish to bill all services connected to Medicare that have not already been invoiced, we can simply flag the payer in our payer listing, select the invoice icon, choose our options that are appropriate on the screen, and select OK. Most likely you need to preview the billing prior to submission. A preview, depending on the country, will give you a different style of submission. In this example, we're looking at a 5010 invoice submission report. This report will list all of the comments that are potentially wrong with our submission. In this particular case, it's listing reasons as to why we are not ready to submit these charges yet. We're missing too much information. So we would go back into the patient's file, correct this information, and go through the same steps again. Eventually, we would like our submission report to show no comments whatsoever. In the preview, no comments means this file is ready for submission. When we close the preview, our options are either usually to prepare the file. Sometimes you'll see send the file if the file is sent directly, as an example of our BC clients. Prepare the file means that we will be preparing an electronic file submission and you'll be sending this submission over to your clearinghouse. If the file is created successfully, you will receive a pop-up on your computer telling you where the file has been saved, so that you can locate the file and send it to the appropriate clearinghouse. Once the file is prepared, printed, or sent, that is called billed in our system. So the invoice will show up both under the payer, indicating the number of invoice and the amount. It will also show up in the client's activities by invoice section. All services in our system are considered unbilled until you prepare them on an invoice. If you need to see a list of all services that still need to be billed, you can run a report in your system under the financial section entitled Unbilled Services. This will give you a list of all services still needing to be invoiced. This is most likely a report that you would want to check perhaps on a weekly or monthly basis. Once you think you've completed the billing, you would still want to run this report to ensure that no one is showing up on this report that you're not aware of. For a list of all invoices that have been submitted and still not paid, the report you would run is also under the Financial section entitled the Accounts Receivables by Invoice Report. This report will list all invoices by patient order, and it will age how old those invoices are. For example, services may be outstanding between 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 to 120 days. Should you receive a denial on one of your charges indicating perhaps that you entered the number of units incorrectly or missing a modifier, something on that submission, one of the items is incorrect, you can do something in the system called tagging for resubmission. To do so, simply find the patient, go to their Activities by Services screen. The Book of Hands icon will bring you to the Activities by Service screen. Simply flag the line item that you want to tag for resubmission. In fact, expand that line item and simply flag the line item going to the insurance company. If you right-click on that line, you should now see an option for Tag for Resubmission. What the tag for resubmission will do is it will actually uninvoice, unbill that particular line item so that you can actually flag and edit that line item to fix whatever's missing. Once you have completed the fix, you'll simply submit that charge on your next bill run, either by batch billing or by billing the patient individually. Thanks so much for joining us today on our brief tutorial on charges, billing, and payments within the Practice Perfect system. We hope to hear from you soon. One last thing regarding billing, invoicing, and statements in our system. Invoicing and statements are two separate items in our particular system. Right now, looking at this particular patient, if we wanted to invoice anything that has not already been invoiced, by clicking on the Invoice button, for Carol, it will grab all services that have not yet been invoiced and produce her an actual invoice for submission. Invoicing takes items from the charged column into the billed column. That is the only way we call items billed in our system, is by producing some type of invoice. A statement, on the other hand, is more like printing a report. A statement will contain any transaction for the time frame that you've chosen. For an example, I could run a statement for this patient from anything back to, let's say, April 1st to current date. That statement for Carol will then show me any transaction that has happened within that time frame. Statement has no bearing on calling an item billed or unbilled, moving it from the charged column into the billed column. Think of a statement as a simple report that you're running. Invoicing in our system is the only way to call something billed. You can invoice your patients individually from inside the patient's file by clicking on the Invoice button, or you can go to a listing of your clients, either active perhaps or all clients, flag all of your clients, and then invoice from here. This would be producing invoices for any patient that have charges not yet invoiced. This is something you would probably do at the end of your billing cycle. You can also invoice your payers exactly the same way. You can flag all of your payers and bill them all at the exact same time. Perhaps you only want to select certain type of payers. For an example, by using the two red flags with question mark icon, you could select only the payers who are being submitted a certain or particular invoice style. For an example, if I ask the system to find only insurance companies being submitted a 5010 invoice style, and say OK, the system will only flag the insurance companies that meet that criteria. Now when I go to invoice or prepare a billing submission, it will only be invoicing those payers that are flagged. Statements can also be run exactly the same way. Flag all your patients, run statements, and perhaps you don't want to include statements for anyone that has a zero or credit balance. You can not include those particular individuals by clicking selections on this screen before running your statements. Most people run a combination of statements and invoices at the end of the month. Invoices, remember, will grab all services not yet billed. Statements will also grab anyone with an outstanding balance. Remember as well that your settings drop-down lists contain invoice formats where you can include messages on either invoices for all patients, or you can enter specific messages for all statements for all patients. Thanks so much again for choosing Practice Perfect. We hope we hear from you soon.